welcome back to our YouTube channel. Today we're gonna solve the intro to AWS IAM Enumeration Lab from pwnedlabs.io. And here we have a short introduction that this is a beginner friendly lab, and it will give you the introduction to the AWS CLI and the IAM service components, that is roles, user groups, and policy enumeration. And this lab is good for the red team and blue team people looking to gain familiarity with the AWS cloud. So without further ado, let's play the machine. Okay, the lab is on, and we have this AWS credentials as our entry point. We have this dev01 user, password, and here we have a sign-in console. That's great. Let's see the scenario first, that you are the security consultant hired by the global logistics company, huge logistics. Following suspicious activities, you are tasked with enumerating the IAM user, that is dev01, and mapping out any potential compromised resources. And your mission is to enumerate and evaluate IAM roles, policies, and permission. So there is some kind of suspicious activities going on in this dev01 user environment. And as usual, we have a lab prerequisite, that is a basic command line Linux knowledge is required. And learning outcomes, familiarity with AWS CLI, IAM components, and ability to list, retrieve, and interpret IAM policies. Difficulty is beginner and focus is on red and blue team. So first, let's log in. Let me copy the sign-in console. Okay, it's a link of sign-in console. It is a dev01 user. Let's copy the password and let's paste it here. Sign in. Okay, we are this dev01 user. That's great. Let's go back. So here we have a real world context that states the IAM stands for Identity and Access Management, and it is the heart of AWS environment. Okay. Both offensive and defensive security practitioners need to have a solid understanding of IAM and how to enumerate permissions. So basically, attackers look for overly permissive settings or misconfiguration in a potential attack chain, while as a defender, we need to enforce the principle of least privilege and identify any resources or services that are in the blast radius of a compromised IAM user. Okay, and here we have the question that how can we interact with AWS? So there are 4 different ways we can interact with the AWS. The first one is AWS Management Console. This is a user-friendly web interface that gives you a nice graphical way to handle your AWS resources. Next up, we have AWS CLI. If you are more into the command line interface lets you work your AWS magic using the good old command line prompt. We also have this SDK, that is software development kits, and they are available in various languages like Python. Boto3 is a very popular library. We have Java, .NET, and more, and it allows the programmatic access to the AWS services. Next up, we have API. Most AWS services offers RESTful APIs that you can talk to directly. And we have this management console. We have already signed in, right? Click the GuardDuty service and select the US West 1 region. Okay. And here we have the AWS CLI documentation, the short notes, like how you can install the AWS CLI. That apt install AWS CLI, it is a command to install the command line interface of AWS. And they are just, these are the short notes related to access key ID and the secret access key ID. Please read it. And here we have our dev01 users credentials. Okay, these are the access key ID and the secret key. So first, let's explore the GuardDuty service. We have already logged in, and let's click on the GuardDuty service. Basically, Amazon GuardDuty is a threat detection service, and it continuously monitors your AWS account and instances and other resources for potential threats. And it also mitigates threats early by initiating automated response. So here we have a dashboard of Amazon GuardDuty. In summary, we don't have anything. Let's click on findings. And okay, here we have, this is a finding dashboard. Let me close it. And we have these threats, and the threat severity is low, high, medium. Okay, current, archive, and all findings. Let's see the current findings. I just want to check the threats that have severity level. Why I'm not using the filters. Severity is high. Apply. Okay, so we have 3 high severity threats. It is related to dev 01, right? So let's click on it. Anomalous behavior. Okay, let's click on that. Okay, it is saying that API is commonly used in impact tactics were invoked by user IAM user dev 01 under anomalous circumstances. Such activity is not typically seen from this user. Let's see the overview. The severity is high. The region is same, Northern California. We are in the same, yeah, we are in the same region. Account ID is same. Okay, created date, updated. Okay, here we have anomalous APIs successfully called, get invitations count, get detector, and get findings. Okay, these are the API calls for GuardDuty service. Error response, access denied. This is the Cloud Shell. Cloud Shell is a service. Okay, and they don't have access to that. Unauthorized operation. EC2 describe region. Okay, so someone is accessing the EC2 resources. Okay. GuardDuty, other exception is describe organization configuration. Okay. Here we have unusual behavior, an account. User identity is also there, and we have this affected resources. Affected resources is our user, obviously the dev 01, and it is a IAM user. And we can see the access ID of this user. Action, service name is Cloud Shell. Access denied. User agent is browser. First seen 10 days ago and last seen 10 days ago. Okay. And here we have information about the actor, the threat actor. We have this remote IP. Okay, here as you guys can see, we have the IP address here. And the country is South Africa, latitude is there, longitude is there. So after reviewing this finding, we surely know that some suspicious activities are going on. Okay, let me open my Kali Afshan, and here I have my password. Let me open the terminal. CD Pwned labs IAM enumeration. I've already created the directory of this lab. Now we have to configure the credential of this dev 01 user, right? With the help of this AWS configure command, copy the access key ID. Now we have to paste the secret access key. We don't know the default region. Output format is none. Okay, let's check who we are now with the help of AWS SDC STS, get caller identity. I'm keep pronouncing it as STC all the time. So yes, we are this dev01 user. That's great. Now let's get the user detail with the help of this AWS IAM, sorry, get user command, get user, and hit enter. You guys can see the username is dev01, user ID is this, ARN, that is most important, password last use, and you guys can see the tags as well. Now let's check if we are belong to any group or not. And you guys can use the following command: AWS IAM list group for username is dev01. Okay, hit enter. So this is empty. That means this dev01 user is not a member of any IAM group. Now our next step is to list the attached user policies, and for that we will use the AWS IAM list attached user policies, and we have to provide the username, that is dev01. Let's hit enter. It looks like our IAM user has certain permissions, and we can see that they have two policies attached to them. The first one is Amazon GuardDuty read-only access. It is a managed policy. Okay, this policy is related to the GuardDuty, a service that keeps an eye out for any suspicious activities in our AWS environment or account. Second one, we have this custom policy, that is dev01, and this policy ARN is like a special ID for these policies. So let me copy these ARN, Control C, open a notepad. It is related to my Russian notes. This ARN is for GuardDuty managed policy. Second one, we have this dev01 custom policy. Let me copy the ARN. Okay, now we have two policies, the custom policy and the managed policies. It's a good time to check whether we have any inline policies attached to this user, and for that we will use this command, that is AWS IAM list user policies, and you have to provide the username. Let me clear the screen and hit enter. We have this S3 access. Okay, this is our inline policy. Cool. Now we have to dig into the policies. Okay, we have three different policies. So let's start off with our Amazon GuardDuty read-only policy. And first of all, we have to see the version, right? We have to find out the version of this policy. So for that, we will use this command, that is AWS IAM list policy version. After that, you have to provide the policy ARN, and we have already copied the GuardDuty policy ARN, and let's hit enter. Enter and Q to end it. Okay, as you guys can see, the version ID, the newest version ID is v3 version 3. So let's get the policy detail. AWS IAM get policy version, and we have to provide the policy ARN, provide the policy ARN that we have copied earlier. Now you have to provide the version ID. In this case, the version ID is 3, right? As you guys can see here, the version ID is 3. Let's hit enter. Enter. Q to end it. We have this policy version. So we have already seen these actions when we explored the GuardDuty, that this describe action allow us to retrieval of details about GuardDuty resources like detector and findings. We have already seen that. And this get action permits getting specific information such as finding threat intelligence sets or filter details. And next up, we can list actions, enable listing resources like detector, members, or findings. So basically this policy is granting these three permission to perform these action within the AWS services like GuardDuty. So now it's time to get the version of our dev01 custom policy. Okay, and for that we will use this command, that is AWS IAM list policy version, and we have to provide the dev01 ARN. Okay, let's hit enter. Okay, so the latest version is 7. Okay, now we have to get the JSON document for this policy, and for that we will use the AWS IAM get policy version, and we have to provide the ARN. Let me clear the screen. And the version ID is 7 v7. It should be version. Okay, get policy version. Okay, okay, great. So we have this get role, get policy version. These are the actions. Okay, so these are the different allowed actions that apply to this user, role, and policies. Okay, so I have already mapped these permissions. So this dev01 user has the permission to get user policy, list attached user policies, and list group for users. Now we have this backend role, and this backend role can list attached role policies, get the detail of the role, and get role policies. And I think this backend dev policy is attached to this backend dev role. Okay, it's a role by the way. And get policy version. And we also have this dev01 policy, and the same thing, the get policy version, and the list policy versions. Cool. So now let's confirm that this backend dev policy is attached to this backend dev role. So for that we will use this command. Okay, let me clear the screen. We will use AWS IAM list attached role policies, and the role name is backend dev. Let's hit enter. So yes, we are right. This backend dev policy is attached to this backend dev role. So let's continue to enumerate the backend role and backend dev policy. I just want to get the role information, and for that we will use the AWS IAM get role, and we have to provide the role name, and in this case the role name is backend dev. Let's hit enter. Okay, so this is the role name, that is backend dev. Okay, as you guys can see in action, we have this assume role. That means this dev01 user can assume a role. Okay, and the description is grant permissions to backend developers. So basically we are assuming the role of a developer. So we have to investigate this backend dev policy, right? So we'll use the AWS first. Let's copy the ARN of this backend dev policy, and let me paste it here. Now we have to get the version of this policy, and for that we will use AWS IAM get policy, and we have to provide the policy ARN. Let's hit enter. So as you guys can see, the version ID is v1. That's great. Let's get the JSON document. AWS IAM, let me clear the screen. Get policy version, provide the policy ARN. I've already copied the policy ARN, and the version ID is v1, that is version 1. We have already seen that. Enter. Q to end it. So we can describe the EC2 instance, and we can get the secret manager secret data, that is list secrets, all permission, all resources permission. And we also have this permission that get secret value and describe the secrets. So this means like if we assume the role, then we would be able to retrieve information about the all EC2 instances in the AWS account and list all the secrets uh, currently stored in the secret manager. And we will also be able to get the information about the describe and retrieve the secret value of this prod customers. Okay, so let's assume the role with the help of this command, that is AWS STS assume role, and we have to provide the ARN of the role, that is backend dev, and the role session name. I'm using the AWS CLI session. Let's hit enter. It will give us this temporary credentials, and I have to use this export command, export AWS access key ID. Let me delete this and let's copy. Let's hit enter. It's time to export the AWS secret key. Let's copy the secret key and paste it here and hit enter. Now it's time to export AWS session token equal to, and we have to copy the session token from here to here, paste it here, and now hit enter. So we have successfully exported our access key ID, secret access key, and the AWS session token. Now we have to check whether we have assumed a role or not with the help of this command, AWS STS get caller identity command. And yes, as you guys can see, we are this backend dev role. So we have assumed this role. That's great. We can also check this trust relation through the console as well. Let me click on the roles. You have to write details and write the backend dev role. Hit enter. It should be backend, not backend dev. Okay. Yeah, as you guys can see, we have this backend dev role, and if you click on this trust relation, you can see this, that we can assume a role. Okay, the same policy, the trusted entity. So the dev01 is a trusted entity. That's great. Now it's time to access the secret data, and we will use this following command, that is AWS secret manager. Secret manager get secret value. Okay, and we are providing the secret ID, and we have already copied this secret manager ARN from our backend dev policy. Okay, and I am providing the region, that is US East 1A. Let's hit enter. Okay, great. So this is the MariaDB credentials. Host is this, port is 3306, DB name is customers, and the username is root, password is this. Okay, if you guys remember, we have seen this policy as well, that is list user policy, username dev01. We also have the S3 access policy, right? Let's enumerate this policy as well. AWS IAM get user policy, username is dev01, and the policy name is S3 access. Let me clear the screen and hit enter. Enter. Okay, so this user has this permission to list the buckets and get objects. and we have found the ARN of the buckets, and it is a name, by the way. Control C and Control V. Okay, this is the name of the bucket. Let me copy the bucket and let's write AWS S3 LS, and we have provided the bucket name. Let's hit enter, and we have got our flag. So let's write AWS S3 CP S3, provide the bucket name flag.txt, and I want this flag in my current directory. Okay, let's hit ls. Okay, let's get our flag. Cool. Let me copy this and let's scroll up, and we have to paste the flag here, submit it.